Rogues, I have been thinking about this question. If you have to leak to the press that you want an invitation to your own father's house, and then your own father's people leak right back that they don't trust you, what exactly does that tell you about the state of your relationship? Because that's not a family disagreement. That's a restraining order written in diplomatic language. Welcome back, my royal rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. Much love and bliss. So here's what happened this past weekend, and I need you to pay very close attention to the sequence of events because the sequence is the story. First, friends of Prince Harry, and I want you to hold that phrase in your mind like a grenade with the pin already pulled. Friends of Prince Harry told the Sunday Times that the Duke of Sausages would very much like King Charles to invite the whole family to Sandringham this summer. Harry, Meghan, the kids, Doria, if she shows up, that is, the whole California delegation, shipped across the Atlantic for some quality family bonding time. In Norfolk, the friend even spelled it out. If the king was to say, come up and spend some time with the family, Harry would love that. Sounds reasonable, right? A son wanting to see his ailing father. Grandchildren reconnecting with their grandfather. Who could argue with that? And then, within hours, a source described as a friend of the king responded through the Daily Mail with language so precise, so deliberately devastating, that it could only have been written by someone who has been waiting a very long time to say this. And this was their time to shine. The quote was, if Harry truly wishes to see his father, he would do well to encourage his supporters to allow such matters to be discussed privately, since low trust and bitter experience in this regard remains one of the principal barriers to progress. Low trust, bitter experience, principal barriers to progress. That is not a father leaving the door open. That is a father who has been burned so many times that his people are now speaking in the third person just to create an extra layer of emotional distance. And here's the part that should make everyone in Harry's circle deeply uneasy. Every single word of that statement was earned. Because think about the pattern here. Think about what has happened every single time. Harry has reached out to his family over the past 4 years. He flies to London after the cancer diagnosis, 30 minutes with his father, and within days the details are in the press. He attends the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and the visit becomes ammunition for the next round of media briefings. He publishes Spare, a turd so explosive, oh, wait, that would be diarrhea. But whatever, that it single-handedly destroyed whatever goodwill was left, and then turns around and says he has forgiven them. He said, and this is real, I don't know how much longer my father has. And somehow that was supposed to be an olive branch. That was supposed to make people want to trust him again. But I think I know what is the core of their problem. Trust is not a switch. You don't get to flip it back on because you've decided it's convenient. Trust is a bank account. And the Harclays have been making withdrawals for 6 years without a single deposit. The book was a withdrawal. The Oprah interview was a withdrawal. Every single time team Sausages leaked details of private conversations to sympathetic reporters. That was a withdrawal. And now Harry is standing at the counter asking for a loan, and the bank is saying, sir, your account has been overdrawn since 2020. And what makes this even more revealing is what was happening simultaneously. Because while Harry was begging for a Sandringham invite through newspaper intermediaries, which, by the way, is itself a leak, which is itself the exact behavior the palace just called out, while that was happening, reporters were also pointing out something the king's side clearly wanted everyone to notice. The Prince and Princess of Wales have a home on the Sandringham estate, Anmer Hall. They spend their holidays there, which means if Harry and Meghan actually showed up, they'd be potentially sharing the grounds with William and Catherine, from whom Harry remains completely estranged. So the request wasn't just, can I see Dad? The request was, can I parachute my entire family into the one place where the brother I publicly accused of physically assaulting me also lives, and can you make that happen during a holiday? And also, can you provide taxpayer-funded security for the visit because I don't feel safe? That's not an olive branch. That's a hostage negotiation disguised as a family picnic. And here's where it gets even more layered, because the timing of all of this was not accidental. Harry's people dropped the Sandringham story right in the middle of an ongoing government security review. He's still waiting for a decision from the Ravek Committee on whether he and his family are entitled to enhanced police protection in Britain. And multiple commentators, including people who used to be sympathetic to Harry, have pointed out that the grandchildren angle has become a recurring pressure tactic. The implication being, give me what I want on security, or you'll never see Archie and Lilibet again. One source described it openly as emotional blackmail. And you know what? When your own father's friends are going on the record saying they don't trust you, that accusation becomes very hard to dismiss. Now I want to shift gears, but stay with me because this connects. Because while Harry was getting publicly shut down by the palace, Meghan was dealing with a scandal of her own that perfectly illustrates why the palace doesn't trust them. Meghan's upcoming Sydney retreat, her best life, has been unraveling in slow motion for weeks. The tickets cost up to $3,000. The hotel pool isn't finished. The venue is still under renovation. Over 35,000 Australians signed a petition demanding that no taxpayer money be spent on their visit. All of that is embarrassing enough. But then came the part that should make your blood run cold if you're Catherine. Reports surfaced that the VIP guest list for this retreat was not first come, first served. Guests were handpicked. Applicants had to write essays about why they should be allowed to attend. And among those chosen was someone described by the Daily Mail as a sausage squad lieutenant, someone who had publicly spread appalling conspiracy theories about Catherine's cancer diagnosis. We're talking about claims that Catherine was faking her illness, claims that the videos of her were fabricated, the kind of vicious, dehumanizing garbage that was being peddled while a mother of 3 was fighting for her life. And this person was handpicked for Meghan's luxury retreat. Selected, vetted, approved. Now, do I think Meghan personally reviewed every application and picked this specific person? Maybe. Not. But that's almost worse, isn't it? Because it means the people running Meghan's operation either didn't bother to check, or they checked and didn't care. Either way, it tells you everything about what Team Sausages actually looks like behind the curtain. It's not a professional operation carefully managing 2 global brands. It's a leaky ship crewed by true believers who think spreading conspiracy theories about a cancer patient is a reasonable form of loyalty. And this is why the King's people said low trust and bitter experience. Because it's not just Harry and the book and the interviews. It's the entire ecosystem around them. It's the army of online defenders who attack anyone who questions the sausage narrative. It's the media strategy that operates like a revolving door: leak, deny, redirect, repeat. The palace has watched this pattern for 6 years, and they finally said out loud, on the record, with diplomatic language. That might as well be a neon sign: we see what you're doing, and we are done pretending we don't. And while we're connecting dots, here's one more thread that ties this all together beautifully. Patrick J. Adams, Meghan's co-star from Suits, the guy who played her on-screen love interest for 7 seasons, just did a podcast interview. And in between saying very nice things about Meghan and calling what she's been through insane, he casually revealed 2 details that, if you're paying attention, tell you everything. First, his Instagram bio, which jokes about being the other guy from that show you're watching because that girl married that prince, has apparently never gotten a reaction from Meghan. Not a text. Not a comment. Not even an acknowledgement. He imagined she'd do an eye roll, and he said, and this is a direct quote, "I got a lot of eye rolls." That was a constant with Meghan. Nice. Second, he wasn't on the list to receive a gift package from her as ever brand. The interviewer got one. Patrick J. Adams, 7 years of working together. Attended her wedding, publicly defended her against media attacks, did not. Now, is this a huge scandal? No. But it's a perfect little microcosm. Because here you have a guy who has been unfailingly loyal, who has used his platform to defend her, who still carries a reference to her in his public bio, and the relationship is apparently so one-directional that he doesn't even make the mailing list for a jar of jam. That is a pattern. That is the same pattern the palace is describing with low trust and bitter experience. People give, and give, and give, And at some point they realize the giving only goes one way. And I think this is ultimately the story of the Harkles in 2026. Not a single dramatic collapse, but a slow, visible erosion of every relationship they depend on. Netflix got tired and walked away. Spotify called them, and I'm quoting someone else here, grifters. The Australian public signed a petition telling them to pay their own way. The King's own inner circle went on the record saying they can't be trusted. And a guy who spent 7 years pretending to be in love with Meghan on camera didn't even get a thank you package. The Harkles keep telling us they want reconciliation. They want to rebuild. They want to be taken seriously. But every action contradicts the words. You don't rebuild trust by leaking your reconciliation plans to the Sunday Times. You don't demonstrate good faith by surrounding yourself with people who spread conspiracy theories about your sister-in-law's cancer. And you don't convince a 77-year-old king fighting cancer to open his home to you by turning his grandchildren into bargaining chips. The king said no. And honestly, it took him way too long to say it. But the important thing is, he finally said it. And everyone heard. My royal roguies, what do you think? Is this the end of Harry's reconciliation fantasy? Or does he have one more play left? Let me know in the comments.